something happened last week that, is the most titanic shift in
Big if
sports.
true.
Yeah, it's the biggest big if true for me as a sports fan that I've experienced in my life. The Oakland A's are my team. They are my favorite team in sports. The Vikings are a very, very, very close second, but it's the A's. I have wanted my whole life nothing more than to see the A's win their 10th World Series. Like, every year I get my hopes up. I'm so excited. I learn everything about every guy on the 40-man roster. I watch every inning of the season. I've written on my blog before about how what the A's do, what their players do, is kind of the reason that I still believe in sports as I get older, and I've not gotten jaded and said, oh, I'm not watching it anymore, because you'll see these groups of guys who they're playing in a dilapidated, crappy facility, no budget, ragtag group of guys, and they just come together for a common goal. And lo and behold, 2018, 2019, 2020, they won 97 games per season. Like, I love stories like that. I love the Oakland A's. I love what it means to be, an East Bay blue-collar team. And they've been doing it continually since like the late 90s, since I've been a fan. So this entire Billy Bean era, the Moneyball era, all these scrappy, great players that have, gotten us to, seasons where we're winning 90 or 100 games. It's been what sustained me as a sports fan for all this time. And that fuckface, John Fisher, and his little crony, Dave Kaval, are trying to take my team out of Oakland, out of the East Bay, and move them to Las Vegas. They announced that they are entering a binding agreement not to build a stadium, but to buy land across I-15, across the freeway there from where T-Mobile Arena is now, and just a little bit north of Allegiant Stadium. So with quick access to the Strip over the pedestrian bridge there. That's their plan. Retractable roof, 30 to 35,000 seat stadium getting built there. You like that pick of the week? Not so fast, my friend. I do not think that the A's are leaving. I think
really
I'm going out on a limb here because I'm kind of jinxing myself, because if I could have anything in sports, it would be the A's staying in Oakland and winning a title in Oakland. Anything. A Viking Super Bowl would be amazing. The Sharks winning the Cup is great, but the A's remaining in Oakland and winning a title in Oakland would mean more to me than anything as a sports fan. And I still think it's possible. I think Tim Kawakami from The Athletic made this point better than anybody. If you think that this team of John Fisher and Dave Kaval is competent enough to get this deal done, given all the roadblocks that exist in Las Vegas right now, with kind of the public sentiment against all the taxes that came with funding the Raiders Stadium, it's a losing bet. I think people have kind of wised up to this crying poor billionaire act from John Fisher. I feel like this move, which by all accounts was announced in incredible haste, just like they needed to rush it because they have this January 2024 deadline to get a stadium deal, or MLB pulls the plug on the revenue sharing and the A's become a big market team and they don't get any revenue sharing. They actually pay into it. They announced this in a hurry because they're like, if we announce this now, we have whatever it ends up being, 9.5 months until that deadline to get a binding agreement done with the state of Nevada. I do not believe Dave Kaval can get that job done. He has failed in everything to this point. He was going to move the team to the Laney College site, which was shot down immediately. They launched this huge website for, this is what the stadium's going to look like. This is where it's going to be located. Here are the shops and restaurants and hotels that are all going to be around it. Gets shot down at the very first hurdle. So then he pivots. He goes to, the Oakland waterfront, Jack London Square. Instead of building a $1.5 billion stadium on the water, the only way they would come to an agreement with Oakland is if they did a $12 billion complete rebuilding of Howard Terminal, Jack London Square, the entirety of that West Oakland waterfront, which is the biggest construction project anybody's overtaken in the Bay Area in forever. They only wanted that because Fisher wanted to own all that real estate. He had no interest in the ballpark, just like he has no interest in the baseball team. He just wants the real estate to build income properties so that he and his stupid ass family can stay rich forever. Whatever. He's a total scrub. My point is, if you're the city of Las Vegas and you have two choices, number one, get into bed with John Fisher, the worst owner in sports, and give him $500 million of taxpayer money, or two, say, hey, that's Oakland's problem. Let them figure it out. We want an expansion team. I think you go with the latter because it'll be a better owner. It'll be someone who will come in and wants to start fresh. It, by the laws of physics, has to be a better owner than Fisher. So that's my pick of the week. There's a lot of different things conspiring there. I could go on for forever, but what are your thoughts on that before I give you a couple more points?
It makes sense. It makes a lot of sense from Vegas's standpoint, especially the expansion team part. But my thing is, even if it does fall through, which you made a lot of sensible arguments saying it won't, what makes it get done in Oakland?
I think facing that January deadline to, get a stadium deal.
Do you think Manfred can strong arm Oakland?
I don't think Manfred can strong arm Oakland. I think Joe Lacob can strong arm John Fisher and say, you spent $180 million to buy this team in 2005. I will give you 1.2 or 1.5 billion for this team now. You can multiply your investment by like 8x and get out with your one little shred of dignity left. He has a standing offer to buy the team. And I think he would, on day one, he does. And yeah, he tried to bid on the team in 2005 and failed. And apparently over COVID 2020, 2021, he reached out to Fisher and said, I have a standing offer to buy the team. Nobody knows what the number is, but it's assumed to be between like 1.2 and 1.5 billion. And he has said in interviews, if he were to acquire the team, that $300 million gap between Oakland and the A's, he would just, he can piss away $300 million like it's nothing. And he could bridge that gap and get the, Jack London Square Oakland waterfront ballpark built in a jiffy. So I feel like that's a possibility. The other couple points I wanted to bring up as to why I think, the A's dream in Oakland isn't over yet and that Vegas is still a very long shot possibility is twofold. Number one, 21 of the 29 non-A's teams have to vote to allow this, for this to pass. There's already been 4 teams who, according to all counts, will say no because they don't want the Giants to have the entirety of Northern California, and they also don't want a team moving very close to their area. Arizona, the Dodgers, the Angels, and the Padres. They don't want another team moving to their, southwest of the United States area and trying to take some of their market share. They also don't want the Giants to basically have all that area from, the southern part of the Bay Area all the way up to, Seattle. They don't want them to dominate all that area. So they're figuring that's already 4 teams who are definitely going to vote against it. The other thing is Fisher and Manfred have come to an agreement where it's like, okay, typically you have to pay $2 billion to move your team as a fee for uprooting a team out of their fan base and blowing up the league. You have to pay $2 billion. The only reason that the Expos didn't have to was the team went into administration. They went bankrupt and the league bought the team and then found I believe it's the Lerner family to buy it and move it to Washington to just kind of save the franchise. In this situation, for whatever reason, probably because Manfred knows he's between a rock and a hard place here, he has offered to waive that $2 billion fee. I don't know if you get owners to vote, hey, let's just forego receiving $2 billion to let this guy Fisher move his team. I think they want 2 new expansion teams. I think they want the A's to stay in Oakland. They want an expansion team in Las Vegas and an expansion team in Nashville. That's their goal. I think that's what they want. And I think this announcing the A's moving to Vegas by Kaval and Fisher that was premature is entirely designed to either, work out and finally get their situation resolved or to pump up the value of the team as a last-ditch effort before they sell. So that's my thoughts on the situation from 30,000 feet. I really hope that's the case.
It's not bad. Like it makes sense. It makes sense.
There's just so many things that have to go right, and these guys are incompetent. I don't see it.
It absolutely makes sense, but I don't know. Like if they did, on the part that I just even struggle with, just because it's where I'm at. Because if this if this happened maybe 2015, 2016, like right after, that Donaldson Cespedes era, or like during it, I'd be like, I mean, I'd be devastated. Like when I
Mhm.
was a, big A's fan. I'm not anymore for, just a few reasons. I just sport in general, but the bigger one is like, yeah, the A's it's not even that they sell the players because I just like you, like I understand sports and money and contract like stuff. Like I understood why they got rid of all these players. I wasn't like, oh my god, why can't we keep these guys? I'm like, owner doesn't want to pay. Like GM's got to get value. Like I understood it. Like I'm
Yeah.
sure you're not happy about it, but you understand. You understand the idea of Moneyball.
Mhm.
But it's more of just like you keep talking about not being here all the time. Like
Mhm.
people are gonna believe it, and I just like that's kind of how I felt. Like you keep talking about how you're sleeping with Vegas. Like Caval's like, oh look, taking in the Vegas Knights playoff game,
Mhm.
or like it's like okay, it takes off that maybe it didn't for you because you were like the biggest of big fans, but like it just takes off that like it's just like the kind of like the believing in the make believe because like this all this sports stuff is
Right.
just make believe shit. Like
Yes.
it has no value on life at all. That's
Mhm.
the saddest thing for people like you and me to relate to because it is life and death for the people that do fund everything, which
Yeah.
is AKA the fans. It is real. Like it's like Disney. Like how does Disney make so much money? It's not the kids. It's the 40-year-old parents who are Disney adults who take their kids there and
Mhm.
pay all that money. And it's like they believe in the Little Mermaid.
Yeah.
Like that's like Superman is a real person. Like that's why
Right.
people talk about like people are like just the way superhero movies are now. You read them about them. They're always talking about like casting and like getting representation in like minorities, whatever. And I'm like, you guys aren't really understanding the point. If I was one of them, like a Disney adult person, like really believe in this stuff,
Mhm.
like if Superman was a white guy, like don't you dare cast him as like anything else because people believe that is Superman.
You're
Like create another if you want more like you want black people, Asian people, whatever. Like there are those type of superheroes. Like put them in a movie. Like you change like right now it's like what it is Little Mermaid. I think they made
Yeah.
it like a like people are like, no, Little Mermaid was this. Like that's real. That's a real person. And I'm
Yeah.
like, with like sports, it's like the A's like, no, that's the Oakland A's. Like,
Yeah.
don't you dare. And it's like it takes off that like, oh shit, like, no, this is like the A's could just move.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Someone
shit.
made up a story about a fish. Like it's
Yeah.
not.
Like
Yeah.
it's like, like, winning the World Series, like, it mattered a lot to me, but like you just said you can move my team or like, like all this stuff. It's
Right.
like it just for me it kind of took off like, oh, it's not like this big giant like staple in my life
Right.
because you guys are making it seem like it like this is all just constructed, which it is. Like it is.
Mhm.
It absolutely is. Just like
Yeah.
these movies and stuff.
Yeah.
But like the reason why it is a billion-dollar business in whether you talk about Disney or sports, like it's because people really believe this, like life or death, and it's not healthy.
That's for sure.
But like the point is like with the A's, it's like you keep telling me that this isn't like important. That's what you're telling me. It's just
Right.
and it's like
Complete side note, but
if they
when,
did
when you're
stay,
making
like
that point, what they do is my dad and brother, I got them tickets for opening day. They are so out on Oakland and so trying to like actively make sure few people go to the game. There was like no staff there at the game. So there's like 25,000 people on opening night. All the other games have like 3,000, 4,000 people. 25,000 people there on opening night. They had enough staff in terms of like food and stewards and whatever for like, if 1,500 people went to the game. They purposely made it so that like if it's the fourth inning and I want to go get a beer and a hot dog, it'd be like an hour and a half wait and the game would be over by the time you get your food. Like they have spent the past season and a half just being like, go away. We don't want you. It can't work at this stadium. We hate you. And I mean, why does Las Vegas want to get into bed with someone like that? It's ridiculous.
yeah, but then I watched something on the news that the new mayor Shang Tao she was like she basically said like don't call me back
She
A's
did.
like And I'm like,
but what
so
I have
that's why I
heard,
asked, like, what makes it get done in Oakland? Like, do you see them being like the San Jose A's?
it cannot work in Oakland with Fisher as the owner, because he just burned that bridge.
So you're
Apparently,
saying Shang would work with a new agent,
he, uh,
a new agent who represents the A's or whatever.
absolutely 100%. And I
I mean, you can
think
see that.
what happened was, according to Casey Pratt, who does like all the reporting on this situation, him and Brody Brazil are on top of it. I don't usually like Brody, but he's on top of it.
I was like, A's going to Vegas. I'd be like, yeah, okay, take him.
But according to
Take
those
him.
two guys, there were intermediary sessions planned for whatever this ended up being. So about 2 weeks ago, between the A's and the city of Oakland. So it would be Fisher and Kaval, and then the city council and the mayor, Sheng Tao, in these meetings with an arbiter in there to kind of just bring them together to where they can come to a deal. Apparently, they had made significant progress and were about to get the deal done when Kaval pulled negotiations off the table, announced the situation with Vegas. And they're saying that I think his intention was to put the absolute maximum pressure on the city to then capitulate and be like, okay, we get it. Here's your deal, and get it across the line. It spectacularly backfired. The mayor basically said, I won't talk to Kaval. I need Fisher to call me. Fisher called her, and she said, offer off the table. This is over. And at that point, that's when it all went off to the races. So I think there's only two ways this ends. Number one, the team moves to Vegas. Fisher gets his hand out. He gets what he wants. And, they may move as early as next year and play in the minor league ballpark there. Very difficult situation for me to imagine. I would no longer be a fan of the team. That would be it for me.
I was going to ask, like, we were talking about logistics, but like,
yeah,
just like, yeah, like what I mean, I'm not as big a fan anymore, and I certainly never probably was as big a fan as you at any point. But it's just I just think of it happening to the Sharks. It's just sad as shit.
It just is. And there's
Like,
two scenarios. Number one, they
know.
move to Vegas and Fisher's the owner. Number two, he sells the team and the new owner comes in and likely would rather stay in Oakland than move to Vegas, given the Bay Area is the fourth biggest media market in the country. Vegas is 40th. I think Oakland real estate on the waterfront is going to be a hell of a lot more than in the desert, like what that'll be worth long term. So those two scenarios. Scenario number two, I remain an A's fan. I'm optimistic. We finally get our new stadium, new great era of A's baseball, and I can take my kids someday to A's games, and maybe we win the World Series in Oakland. Everything's hunky-dory. If Fisher gets his wish, moves the team to Las Vegas, they start playing there in 2027 at their new retractable roof stadium, I am out. I no longer watch Major League Baseball. It's over for me. Rob Manfred.
You would give up the sport too.
I would give up the sport altogether because I can't just like watch and root against the Giants and root against teams that I dislike, like the Angels or whoever. Like that would be it for me. I would be out on the sport because Rob Manfred enabled all of it. MLB would have ripped the A's out of Oakland. I'm out, but I still have a lot of hope that a situation can come to a head there, and Fisher has no choice but to sell the team if Vegas gives him the boot. So we'll see where it goes, but obviously the toughest of tough times with the A's being the worst team in the league on the field, and then the worst possible situation off it. So
did you watch? I wanted to, but I forgot. Did you watch whatever that first broadcast was after they announced it? Because I think they announced it. It was a day game on a Wednesday, and then Wednesday night it comes out, and then they had an off day Thursday, and then their first game was like on the road Friday night.
Yeah.
Did you watch that? I'm gonna be like, "Welcome to Glenn Kuiper. Welcome to Oakland A's baseball." And
the crazy thing was
going on.
Kuiper was out because he had already taken that 3-game homestand off. So it's this new guy, Dosco, announcing, and I was like, "This feels like a minor league broadcast. Like, oh boy, this is not good." Like, the thing that was crazy was their first home game was Friday against the Reds, and so. Yeah, they post all the A's hit a couple homers, the Reds hit a couple homers, routine game. The A's lost, of course, because they suck this year. But MLB.com posted the highlights, and on every one of the home runs, they cropped out all the signs that said liar or sell the team. And A's fans caught on to it, posted on Twitter.
Yeah, what were like the right field bleachers like?
Yeah, right field bleachers, every person wore a shirt that said sell, like a Kelly green
Yeah.
shirt that said sell, and then all the signs that normally say like Laser Ramon or
Yeah.
keep pounding or whatever their motto is for that season. They all said liar, sell the team, fire Kaval, all this stuff, whatever. But on all the highlights, obviously they couldn't block it on the broadcast, but all the highlights that they posted on YouTube and on the MLB.com site, they'll show the ball going over the fence, and for whatever reason, the camera pans aggressively to just show the ball and not where it lands so that they can block it out. Super low rent, bad look from MLB, like total trash. Could not believe when that came out. Like, who would do that? Like, the NFL would not do that if there were like the draft last week. Everybody boos Goodell for everything. He could come out and be like, I just saved puppies from execution. They'd be like, fuck you, Goodell. And he just takes it. He's like, yes, give me another $100 million this year as part of my compensation package. He doesn't give a shit. But Fisher and, Manfred are so low rent, they'll sink to whatever depths they have to try to keep this charade alive. Just despicable.
Wild. But no, right. I mean, I thought I was like, they're gone. They're gone. But no, you made a compelling case for why they may not have a choice to stay.
Yeah,
because how much money are the Vegas and like Nevada taxpayers going to shell out for all these teams?
Yeah, they hate the Raiders deal. I mean, basically now that's
because they're going to get an NBA team too.
Yeah,
they're going to expand to Vegas too.
Yeah, they deserve expansion teams out there in Vegas, not already established teams, I think. And by the way, Mark Davis, who usually I dislike, he came out when this whole situation happened and said, hey, I'd still be in Oakland if it wasn't for John Fisher and Dave Kaval, who basically I wanted to knock down the Coliseum and build another Raider stadium there and stay in Oakland, and they blocked me, and I had no choice but to leave. It was like, that's got to hurt for Raider fans to hear. But like, if you're such a shit ass owner that Mark Davis goes, you guys suck, that should cause you to look in the mirror, man. Like, rough times for the A's, but I'm hoping good times are ahead. We'll see how that goes.